Good morning. Happy Monday. Everybody have an awesome weekend? Everybody sweat out 5 pounds over the weekend? 90-degree weather has to be good for something. All right, so we have a whole bunch of things to cover this morning, and I want to jump right in with my friend, and hopefully yours, Steve Harvey.
Now, early in the show, we saw my kids, Whitney and Lori, who are now college freshmen, and we're very proud of them, but every parent knows just because they're out of the house doesn't mean they're out of your life. We found some text conversations between parents and their college-age kids, like this. A mom writes, "Be there in 10 minutes." So her kid says, "What?" She writes back, "We saw your roommate's Facebook post about the keg party you're hosting. Dad and I figured we're invited since we just deposited that money in your account this morning. Technically, this is our party." So the kid says, "Why are you friends with him on Facebook? Please tell me you're joking. Mom, this is not funny." He finally hears back from Mom. "Park in the car. We're here. Party." Yeah. All right, here's another one. Kids write, they raised it. Tuition next year is $21,450. Then he writes, "Did you get my text?" Dad? Dad finally texts back, "We're sorry, the number you're trying to reach has been disconnected." Yeah. And finally, we have this one right here. A son writes, "Sup, girl? Where you at?" So the dad responds, "It's Dad. Are you trying to text a girl at 2 a.m. on a school night?" So the son responds, "Sorry, LOL." Dad writes, "Son, I'm disappointed. If you had real game, she'd be looking for you."
All righty. Put him in his place. If you had real game, she'd be looking for you. Speaking of real game, there's my good friend Paul Leibowitz this morning. There he is.
Good morning, Rick. So yes, we've got real game here at Westport Mortgage, where we are always helping realtors sell and helping buyers buy. It's what we do. You know, I thought I'd go through some of the programs that are available out there. And so get out your pad and pen, in fact, many pieces of paper, because I'm going to go through and list some of the products that are out there in the marketplace today. And I'm going to put a number on it so that you have an idea where the rates are. So real quickly, let's run through it. First and foremost, there's Fannie and Freddie, and everybody knows who they are. They do the bulk of lending out there. And most Fannie or Freddie purchase loans and refi loans are at about 2.625%. So they're substantially under 3 still, and that's good news. There's also Fannie and Freddie Home Ready and Home Possible, which is basically if you match the income filter with the product, you can get easy qualifying, a little bit better rates, and some good programs. So Fannie and Freddie make up quite a bit of our lending. They also have FHA. FHA is a terrific source of lending for low down payment, less than perfect credit, and some help with qualifying. The beauty there is it's at 2.25% today, which is just outstanding. And not to forget, FHA is also VA, and VA offers up to 100% financing to $2 million, and that includes a cash out refi if you want to do that. Those rates are at 2.5%. So for any vets, any VA out there, terrific programs. VA also offers VA renovation loans, which means that that same vet can add money to renovate the house. Now, speaking of renovation, we have that in a multitude of varieties. So we have FHA's venerable 203K renovation, but we also have Fannie home style renovation, and that includes investor properties or condos, not to forget that. Then we're going to switch for a second and talk about the jumbo. You know, the jumbo has been at or below 3% now for quite some time. So that's 20% down up to $3 million, or 10% down up to $1 million. That's 3% financing. It's absolutely outstanding. There's also a 10-1 ARM version of the jumbo, which offers a free float down and can be had today at 2.75%. And again, that's 20% down to 3 million and 10% down to 1 million. These programs also come in an interest-only version, which is actually very rare today. Interest only on a 7-1 ARM is 2.875%. Now let's talk about investors for a minute, because we have so many products for investors. You know, the first one, and my favorite, is the no-income investor. No-income investor. What that means is that the product will allow lending as long as the rent exceeds the payment. So if your debt service coverage ratio, that's right, debt service coverage ratio, what that means is if all the rents added together is higher than the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance on that property, you do not have to list your income. You do not have to qualify using income. You can borrow just based on the rents. Now, there's another version of that also, which basically allows you to borrow based on your asset statement. So if you're an investor with a good deal of money in the bank, you can use the bank statements themselves to qualify instead of having income. One more thing is the investor fix and flip, which I have used several times, where basically you're borrowing the money to fix up a piece of property. That means it can be uninhabitable when you buy it, as long as you can get a CO when you finish it. And the lender wants you in and out of that program in 12 months. Investor fix and flip, tremendous program. We also lend to foreign nationals, and there's no seasoning on the monies, as long as you have a valid passport. And believe it or not, we're still doing standalone HELOCs. Yes, we do have a vendor for them. We also offer reverse mortgages, delayed financing. We can do co-ops, and we've got a New York license. So Westport Mortgage has been your lending partner since 2007. And I'd venture a guess there's pretty much nothing that we can't do. With decent low rates, everything's pretty much below 3% today for your conforming 30-year fix. So there you have it, Rick. Take it away. Happy Monday.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Paul. Holy Christmas. That's a whole lot of programs. So here's the good news. If you have any questions on what Paul just went through, just reach out to him and ask, because he's got the master list and will be happy to help walk you or your buyers through any info that is needed. All right, so a couple of quick announcements. Reminder that risk reduction for the very last time, 4 to 6 tomorrow, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. tomorrow. Risk reduction right here in this Zoom room. If you were unable to take that class back in April when we offered it 2 other times, you really need to be there tomorrow, 4 to 6. If you know somebody who didn't take it the first time around, please reach out to them and make sure that they get there 4 to 6 tomorrow. Last call for risk reduction for 2021. All right, so I really want to move right into the MLS status change conversation. We're going to make this as quick as possible, simply because it doesn't start until tomorrow, which means we don't actually have an opportunity to start playing with these codes until, Wednesday. Wednesday the 9th is when that starts. So as many of you have seen, the status codes for show and deposit in the MLS are changing. They're changing because the MLS never really did a great job of explaining exactly what those codes were supposed to be used for when they changed them from CTS and pending. For those of you who have been around a little longer, right? So it used to be CTS and pending. CTS stood for continue to show and pending. And that had always had something to do with contracts. And then when they changed the coding, the idea of show and deposit really morphed from contracts to, do you want to show the property or not show the property for backup offers? And so what they're doing is, instead of getting clarity around the codes that we have, they are changing the codes because, that's always less confusing. So the new codes are as follows, starting on Wednesday. Instead of show, we will now have under contract, continue to show. So the code itself tells you now what the story is. So when you have a contract, there's two things that move forward. This is some kind of a signed contract, and the seller has a desire to continue to show the property for backup offers. That's the new show. Under contract, continue to show. Deposit is now moving to a simple under contract. So there's under contract, continue to show, and under contract. The under contract is when the seller chooses not to show the property anymore, right? And so a number of you have been getting stuck in these conversations lately, where you want to show the property, or you're on the list side and people want to show the property, but you have it in a code that is supposed to be showing, but your seller really doesn't want showings, and you're saying no, they don't want showings, but you're getting arguments back and forth because you have it in show and not deposit, right? So this is supposed to solve all of that. We'll see if it actually does, and yet this is supposed to solve all of that. So here's the explanation as written by the MLS. In some instances, rather than having a binding contract, right? Because we don't always have binding contracts right up front. So I'm going to tell you the rules, then I'm going to tell you how I believe this will work practically, because I think they're still two different things, right? The rules say you have to have a contract, and then the seller needs to make a decision about whether or not to show the property in order to move the status into show or deposit. So have a contract defined as something binding and fully executed by both parties. And then the seller gets to make a choice between showings, which would be this under contract, continue to show, or no showings, which would be just the plain under contract. Now, there are times where you have an agreement, a meeting of the minds, right? But you don't have a binding document, right? Some of you still use and are accepting the offer to purchase, especially in Northern Fairfield County, that offer to purchase form that says right on it, it's not a contract. There's big question marks around whether the purchase agreement itself, used mostly along the coast, is actually binding or not. I will tell you that for purposes of this conversation, I'm going to tell you it is, because there is language on page 2 that says it's a contract. Some of you are working with like memoranda of intent, right? Just if you're working in Greenwich or other areas where a memorandum of intent is used to just kind of bring a meeting of the minds. In those circumstances, what's supposed to happen is that the property is supposed to stay as active with a little under agreement flag, right? So if you don't have an actual binding contract, you're not supposed to move the property into under contract, continue to show. You're supposed to leave it as active and just put the little flag that says we are under agreement. Now, in reality, I don't really see that happening. What I see happening is everybody is going to utilize under contract, continue to show the second both parties have executed some document, whether it's binding or not binding, give me a list of 20 attorneys, I'll give you 14 different opinions about which document is binding and which isn't at which time, right? So practically what I believe will happen is we'll just use these two new codes the same way we used the old codes. I just want you to know what the intent is behind it so that you can make decisions about exactly how you're going to mark your properties. Just know the intent behind the codes so that if somebody calls you out on, hey, you didn't mark that property correctly, you either know you didn't mark it correctly, or you can argue back to say, you know what, actually, here's why it's marked this way. The last flag I want to just throw out to you is the multiple offer flag, right? There's now this little flag that when your seller is reviewing multiple offers, you're supposed to click, it stays as active, but you're supposed to click the flag that says under review so that we're looking at stuff. Again, I have a feeling that that is going to be used pretty much never because I'm not sure we need to broadcast to the world that we're reviewing all these offers. It's active until we say it's different. Why people have to know it's under review. Again, remember, that's always driven by the seller. Do we disclose the existence of other offers? Well, it depends, right? If the seller says, yes, go ahead and do that, then we do it. If the seller says no, then we don't do it. If the seller has said nothing, then we still don't do it until the seller says, go ahead and disclose other offers. So that last little flag under review, I'm not sure practically it serves any real purpose, but just know that it's there, right? And then of course that Hubbard clause flag, which has existed in the past, some of you know about it, some of you have no idea that it even exists, right? Is that same thing. Hubbards are not supposed to be moved into an under agreement type status. They're supposed to stay as active with a little checkbox that says we're under a Hubbard clause. Again, practically speaking, that's not the way most real estate agents mark their stuff. So that's the conversation this morning, right? I know it's what you wanted me to say was do it this way this time and do it this way all other times. Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to say that to you because what I really believe is that these statuses, I understand the intent behind them, and I'm not really sure they accomplish exactly what the MLS was looking for them to accomplish. So therefore, know what the rules are and then make decisions about how you're going to mark your properties. Again, practically speaking, my guess is that most people will just replace show and deposit with the new under contract, continue to show and under contract, right? Just remember, here's the part to really underline. Just remember, the difference between those two are whether the seller wants to keep showing the property or doesn't want to keep showing the property. And the seller gets to make that call. So if the seller is uninterested in continuing to have people show the property, just mark it as under contract. Just like today and tomorrow, you can mark it as deposit, right? That stops the whole expectation of showings. All about as clear as mud? Excellent. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Quick question. So while the seller is making this awesome decision on whether or not they're going to continue to have showings, do we have to get that in writing, or can it just be, the honor system, the honor code?
So great question. So here's the difference between the MLS in New York, the One Key MLS in New York, and our MLS. Our MLS does not require that to be in writing from the seller. In the One Key MLS in New York, that actually has to be a directive in writing from the seller and has to be made available to anybody who asks to see the property and or posted on the MLS for everyone to see that the seller has that in writing. In our world, it's just them communicating to you. It's not a bad practice for them to communicate that to you via text or email, just so you have clarity around what their intent is, just in case it ever comes back on you. But we don't have any additional requirements to prove that to anybody on the outside.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, question. I'm a little bit confused about what used to be show. Now we have under contract, and you said there's a word contract on the purchase agreement. But people will say, oh, it's under contract. That means you have a real contract with signatures.
So show is now under contract, continue to show.
But
right, and that is supposed to mean that you have a fully executed contract and your seller has decided to continue to show the property. That's what it's supposed to mean.
So when it's an agreement, what we used to say show is just not, we don't use that anymore at all until we have a contract.
So what the MLS is stating is that property without a fully executed contract, now remember there's a lot of different versions of of contract out there, right? A lot of people are now utilizing the 4-page contract from the MLS. A lot of people are using a 2-page purchase agreement, which again, in my opinion, is a binding contract. There are some attorneys who disagree with that opinion, and yet it says on page 2, paragraph 4, this is a contract, right? The only thing that I would consider not a contract are non-binding offers to purchase and memorandum of intent. So what does all that mean? It means, as confused as half of you look, is exactly how the entire agent population in the state will respond and react, which is why I believe practically what will happen is we'll just substitute the new codes and use them the way the old codes were being used. I'm not advising you to do that. I'm just telling you to try and keep it real, that that's what I expect to happen. I don't expect that agents who accept offers on an offer to purchase are suddenly going to just leave the property as active with a little check mark flag. I don't believe that's going to happen, because the buyer's agents are going to be up in arms that the property is still active, because nobody's going to read what I'm describing to you. So minimally the next couple of weeks, listing agents, you're going to have your job cut out for you, because there's going to be a whole lot of confusion from people who are expecting certain things to happen in a certain matter of time that maybe aren't happening. Yes, Elena.
Will days on the market thingy change with these new changes or no?
So my understanding is that days on the market will continue to accumulate under contract, continue to show, and not just plain under contract. The same way it is with show and deposit now, right? So I believe that that aspect of these new codes does not change. Any other questions? All right, guys. So again, go on the MLS, read this if you'd like. You know what I'll do? I have this all written out for you. What I'll do is I'll cut and paste this and send it out to you so you don't have to search for it, so that you have something to reference if you choose to reference it. Again, these changes take effect on Monday, so I'll get this out to you today so you can read through it. All righty. We were scheduled also to review that homework, and unfortunately this just took longer than we have time for. So we are going to move right to Adonis and Mr. Marty Miller. What do we have?
Right, awesome, good stuff today. So today we have more contacts. We're going to be talking about uploading a CSV file into Command. Remember, it's a contact sport. The more contacts you have, the better you can market and have your whole business flow naturally. I feel like I sound like Marty when I do these introductions. All right, go ahead, Rick.
Will do, Marty. I mean, Adonis.
Good morning, Keller Williams, and welcome back to the KW Command 66-Day Challenge 5.0, and today is day 4. Yesterday, we talked to you about manually adding a contact into the Contacts applet. Today, we're going to talk about importing contacts into our Contacts applet. So our Contacts applet, second one down with a little silhouette figure here. We're going to click on that button to open that applet. You'll see we're going to get into our Contacts applet from here. So yesterday I showed you how to add a contact by clicking on the green button. Today we're going to use the import tool. So if you click on import, you will see that you get this kind of handy guide that walks you through the process. So this is also very helpful. But basically it says the first thing you need to do is download the pre-made CSV file. So if I click on download, I'll get an Excel file that will open down here at the bottom. And it's going to even say on this walkthrough, hey, here are some best practices. I can click on learn more. I can get an answers article about best practices for pulling in my contacts into Command. If I click on next, it's going to say, hey, once your CSV file is done, then you can upload it. So let's look at the CSV file and talk about that a little bit. So here's a sample I'm going to show you in a second, but this is the blank CSV file. This is very important that you make sure if you are pasting in any data from any other Excel spreadsheet or anywhere else that you do not paste over rows 1 and 2. So for example, if you have exported from another database or from your phone or something similar and you have a list of first names, you don't want to copy the entire column on that spreadsheet and then paste it here. You do want to highlight all of the first names on that spreadsheet and then click on this first cell in this A3 spot and paste them there. So for example, Aaron through Zelda would go here, Adams through Zuniga would go here, and then you would continue to post the important information from these contacts. Obviously, if you're manually filling this out, it makes it a lot simpler, but a lot more cumbersome. So you're going to get into several phone number columns here, so you can kind of scroll through and look at all the different phone number columns. I would primarily focus on the primary personal phone, but if you have some other ones, you can put those in. Next, you're going to get into an email section here, so I would focus primarily on primary personal email, but if they've got some additional emails, you can add those as well. Then you're going to get into the address section. It is important that when you're putting in the address, you separate the street from the city, the state, and the zip code. You're not required to put in county or country, although you can if you have it. If it's an apartment or a suite, then you would put that on address line 2. My recommendation is that you put everything in the primary address and then go ahead and copy it over again if you know it's their mailing address. Just drop that right in there as well. As you continue further, you're going to get more information about where they work, their company name, their job title. Then we're going to get into tags and some additional items here. So I'm going to scroll over to the right. So system tags. These columns reference tags that will automatically be applied to your contacts if you have a Y underneath each one of these. Okay, so I'll show you this in our example in just a second. If you put a Y under any one of these columns for any one of these rows, then the tag in that column will automatically appear. You can also add custom tags. So custom tags are tags that you want to apply to your contacts that, like we talked about yesterday, might help you segment or filter them further in the future. You can also add notes, sources, and then social media links as well. So let's take a look at a quick example that I put together for you guys. So here is Annie Agent, Bobby Buyer, Susie Seller. I've put in their phone numbers. I've put in their email addresses. I've dropped in their primary address. I didn't follow my own advice, but I'm going to now. I'm going to copy that primary and paste it also into mailing address. Also, I was doing this in a hurry and I realized that I put in X's. This would not be good because you can see it says select Y if applies. So I need to change those X's to Y's. That way those tags will show up on each one of these contacts. And then I've got some custom tags that I've built out for these contacts. So ALC and Luxury, VIP from my Sphere, and then VIP from Grace Fellowship, my church. So I can save this file. And then basically I'm going to come back to command and I'm going to find that file. So this is where I would upload it. So you can either drag and drop or browse depending on which machine you're on. And let's go into my downloads and you're going to see here, this is number 16. We'll click on open. And then basically I need to click on import contacts to bring this CSV file in. So once I do that, it's going to tell me, congratulations, we've received your import request. And if I click on finish, then all I have to do is refresh periodically to wait for my alert bell to light up. And once I click on that, you'll see all of your imports have uploaded successfully. You should see your contacts created in a few minutes. If you had any issues with some of these imports, perhaps the email was spelled wrong, perhaps the email already exists in your actual platform. If you don't have an email on the contact, there's several different reasons why an import might fail. It'll actually give you a log that you can look at, but in this case, we only had 3 contacts and they all came in. So I can dismiss that notification. And now all I would need to do would be to look for Annie Agent. And there's Annie Agent. You can see Annie's been brought in. Here is her name. We'll click on our contact card. The phone number came across, email came across, the tags came across. Remember, this gray one is the system. These 2 were the customs. Her address came across, and because there's a next door neighborhood assigned to that address, it got automatically put in. And then you can see even legal name came across as well. So that was Annie Agent, and I can tell you the same would be true for Bobby Buyer. Here's Bobby Buyer. You can see here, I've used this example a couple times, but this is the one that we just put in a minute ago. That one came across clean. And then we need to find Susie Seller. And there's Susie Seller. She came in clean, phone number, address, her tags came over as well. So that's essentially how you use the CSV file to import contacts. Best used if you're copying, pasting a lot of data from a former CSV file into the new one. I would also recommend some best practices. Do small batches. When I say maybe 500 to 1,000, I think the max is 2,000 contacts. But I would just be careful. Do a test. First, I would do a test import. If you got a big batch, do like 5 of them. Make sure they come across first, and then you can bring over the rest of the 500,000, 2,000 that you're bringing over. So that's how you use the import tool. You can see guided tour. You have a guided tour of the tool in Command to bring over contacts via the CSV. That's it for today, guys. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And as always, I'll look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Okay. Yeah, so good news here, if that looked a little cumbersome or challenging. Our friends at Scott Leroy Marketing, they can help you with uploading all your contacts into Command and save you time and effort. So email them, support@scottleroymarketing.com. Support@scottleroymarketing.com. They will make your life easier. So reach out to them. Next time we meet with Marty, he's going to talk about searching for contacts and filtering leads versus contacts and what that difference is. So y'all have a good day. The sun is shining. Let's make it a good one. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Talk to you later. Bye, Renee. Bye, Moses. That's the only people I can see on my screen. Bye-bye.
Hi, Adonis. Mom,